Everyone knows Brady's legacy with the Patriots and Rice's dominance in San Francisco, but who are the other all-time greats? From a defensive powerhouse in New York to a record-setting quarterback in New Orleans, these are the best players in the history of each NFL team. 1. New York Giants, Lawrence Taylor. The last time a defensive player won the NFL's MVP award, it was Lawrence Taylor in 1986. The Hall of Fame linebacker was one of the best who ever played the position, and his take-no-prisoners style still resonates with Giants fans decades after his retirement. LT was a star member of the franchise's first 2 Super Bowl winning teams, was the first player to have his number retired by the historic franchise in more than 20 years. They did so in 1994. Taylor's 8 selections as a first-team All-Pro and 10 selections as a Pro Bowler are also team records. 2. Philadelphia Eagles, Reggie White. Along with Peyton Manning, Reggie White is one of just 2 NFL players to have his number retired by 2 teams. The Minister of Defense finished his career with a brilliant run in Green Bay. His time in Philadelphia made him a legend among that town's notorious sports fans. In 8 seasons with the Eagles, White was named to 7 Pro Bowls and 6 first-team All-Pro squads, the latter of which ties the franchise record. He also is the only player in Eagles history to be named NFL Defensive Player of the Year. 3. San Francisco 49ers, Jerry Rice. The 49ers have given the NFL a handful of its greatest players ever, but none of them touch what Jerry Rice did as a wide receiver. In 16 seasons in San Francisco, the GOAT was named a first-team All-Pro, a league record 10 times, and was picked to 12 Pro Bowls, which is a franchise mark. He's one of only 2 receivers in NFL history to get votes for MVP consideration in multiple seasons, and was an instrumental part of 3 Super Bowl winning teams. You think of the Niners, you have to think of number 80 streaking down the field. 4. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Derrick Brooks. The face and leading pioneer of the Cover 2 defense, Brooks was a one-man, well-oiled defensive machine. The 11-time Pro Bowler is 3rd all-time in tackles with 1,300, and he was no slouch in coverage either. His 25 career interceptions were emblematic of an off-ball linebacker with a penchant for a big play whenever he dropped back. 5. Pittsburgh Steelers, Joe Green. Before Green, Pittsburgh possessed one of the NFL's worst defenses. By his 4th season, before some of the Steelers' other all-time players got there, the team began one of the greatest stretches of any unit in NFL history. The 1976 Steelers pitched 5 shutouts and allowed 22 total points in their final 8 regular season games. Their gap-shooting defensive tackle, a 10-time Pro Bowler, did the most to make that possible and anchored 4 Super Bowl championship defenses. 6. New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees. Brees went from a promising upstart for the Chargers to an all-time luminary in New Orleans. A 12-time Pro Bowler with the Saints, the future Hall of Famer revitalized the franchise with its only championship and was thoroughly beloved by an entire city. He's viewed as perhaps the most accurate quarterback ever. The only man ahead of Brees in all-time completion percentage is Joe Burrow, and he's only been around for 3 seasons. 7. Miami Dolphins, Dan Marino. Marino's easily the best NFL player to never win a Super Bowl, but it didn't come for a lack of trying. The gunslinger from Pittsburgh turned the Dolphins into a South Florida phenomenon as a 9-time Pro Bowler, 5-time single-season passing yards leader, 3-time single-season touchdown pass leader, and 3-time first-team All-Pro. Marino didn't win a championship, but his rocket launcher of an arm and famously lightning-quick release set hapless defenses ablaze for 18 years. 8. New England Patriots, Tom Brady. Was there ever a doubt about this one? Apologies to John Hanna and Nick Bonaconti, but Tom Brady runs away with the honor of being the best Patriot in history. It was his play as a starting quarterback that turned New England into the most dominant franchise of the first 20 years of the 21st century. He led the team to 9 of its 11 total Super Bowl appearances and all 6 of its championship wins so far, while being elected to a league record 14 Pro Bowls. It's safe to say football fans in Massachusetts will be missing number 12 for decades to come. 9. Arizona Cardinals, Larry Fitzgerald. After 17 seasons with the Cardinals, Fitzgerald finished 2nd all-time in career receiving yards, 17,492, and receptions, 1,432, and 6th all-time in receiving touchdowns, 121. The 11-time Pro Bowler will walk into Canton in 2026 as a no-doubt first-ballot Hall of Famer. 10. Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan. In a history that stretches back to 1966, only one Atlanta Falcons player has ever been named the NFL's most valuable player, and that was Matt Ryan. His legacy is closely tied to that of Julio Jones, who also makes a strong case as the best player in Falcons history. In 13 seasons so far, all in Atlanta, Ryan has missed just 3 games, racked up a collection of franchise records, and led the team to one of only 2 Super Bowl appearances in its history. His number 2 jersey will surely be hung from the rafters by this franchise when he retires from the game. 11. Baltimore Ravens, Ray Lewis. Lewis was one of 2 Hall of Famers the Ravens selected in their first ever draft. Over the course of 17 years manning the middle of Baltimore's defense, he became the heart and soul of the franchise that embodied its city perfectly. A 2-time Defensive Player of the Year and 7-time First-Team All-Pro, Lewis is in the conversation for the best defender in pro football history. 12. Buffalo Bills, Bruce Smith. The sack icon was a high-caliber pass rusher into his late 30s, using his nearly unblockable spin move to harass quarterbacks and help the Bills to their franchise pinnacle. The 1985 number 1 overall pick possessed an all-around game that allowed him to stay a starter for 18 years en route to an NFL record 200 QB drops. Twice the Defensive Player of the Year, Smith earned 8 first-team All-Pro honors and anchored Buffalo's defenses throughout the team's run atop the AFC East and, later, the conference. Even when taking the 4 Redskins seasons off his resume, this isn't particularly close. 13. Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton. Before running well became a prerequisite to being a star NFL quarterback, Cam Newton was the one who set the standard. The number 1 overall pick of the 2011 NFL Draft, Newton more than lived up to the hype in almost a decade with Carolina. The talented dual threat remains the only player in franchise history to win an Offensive Rookie of the Year and MVP award. That 2015 MVP campaign is one of the finest in NFL lore. He could and often would take over NFL games like an NBA shooting guard. The Panthers' 4 playoff appearances with Newton at the helm are as much as the rest of the expansion franchise's history combined. 14. Chicago Bears, Walter Payton. It is impossible to tell the NFL story without sweetness. Pick for a franchise that has celebrated 11 NFL championships. Payton was there for only 1, but he was the go-to player for a team on the short list for greatest ever. The relentless runners on the very short list for greatest running back in league history. He held the career rushing record for 18 years, had the single-game record longer than anyone, 275 yards in a 1977 game, and his consistency towered over contemporaries. Payton dominated for years against defenses geared around stopping him and was still elite by the time the Bears assembled their 1985 superpower. 15. Cincinnati Bengals, Anthony Munoz. In the 53-year history of the Bengals, Anthony Munoz is the only player enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame primarily for his work with that franchise. The big offensive tackle was a lifelong Californian until he was drafted by Cincinnati in 1980 and has become part of the fabric of that town since then. But he's topping this list primarily because of his on-field contributions, which were just about unbeatable at his position. In 13 seasons in the league, all spent with the Bengals, Munoz was named to the All-Pro First Team 9 times and was selected to the Pro Bowl 11 times, both of which are easily franchise marks. 16. Cleveland Browns, Jim Brown. The Browns franchise wasn't named for Hall of Famer Jim Brown, but you'd be forgiven for thinking that. The rushing legend was a one-man wrecking crew for the all too brief 9 seasons he spent in the NFL, all with Cleveland, and he's still the all-time leading rusher for the team. Browns icons like Otto Graham, Lou Groza, and Gene Hickerson all deserve a spot in the conversation of the best who ever played by Lake Erie, but the 3-time MVP's legend still looms largest 55 years after his retirement. 17. Dallas Cowboys, Emmitt Smith. To say Smith was more a byproduct of the Cowboys' Great Wall offensive line of the 1990s would be foolish. If he wasn't a special talent, he wouldn't finish as the NFL's all-time rushing yards 18,355 and touchdowns 164 leader. There are many super players in Cowboys history, but Smith was inarguably the most successful on an individual and team level. 18. Denver Broncos, John Elway. The most talented quarterback of his era and perhaps of all time, Elway elevated middling Broncos teams for much of his career. His right arm represents one of the most effective weapons on which a team has relied, and despite Terrell Davis boosting Denver's late 1990s Super Bowl champion teams, Elway remained one of the league's best until his retirement. Elway led 3 overachieving squads to Super Bowls in the late 80s and made the Broncos perennial contenders after they'd spent most of their 20-plus years of existence as one of the AFC's worst teams. 19. Detroit Lions, Barry Sanders. If there was a more thrilling runner to watch, point him out. Sanders was not an ideal back around whom aspiring runners could model themselves. His stop-start action was not recommended study, and his defining gift, a career-long ability to make defenders whiff, was a skill not worth learning because no one was on his level. The former Heisman Trophy winner threw an elite speed that made for unparalleled NFL aesthetics. Sanders carried the Lions for 10 years, doing so mostly without reliable quarterbacks. Third all-time in rushing, Sanders has 1,306 more yards than anyone through 10 seasons. 20. Green Bay Packers, Don Hutson. While the Packers have had a legendary trio of quarterbacks that each could have topped this spot, None has defined his position as much as Don Hutson. The receiver spent his entire career in Green Bay from 1935 to 1945, before spending a few seasons as an assistant coach with the franchise. While on the field, Hutson revolutionized the receiver role, leading the NFL in touchdown catches a remarkable 9 times and in total catches 8 times. He was the first player to ever have his number retired by the legendary franchise and was a charter member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. 21. Houston Texans, J.J. Watt. The pass rusher became this century's most destructive defender. While he'll need a few more years to be grouped with the all-time greats, Watt has dominated in the most difficult era for defensive players to do so. 12 players have recorded double-digit sacks. Watt is the only one to do so twice. Watt, whose 39 tackles for loss in 2012 are comically ahead of the competition in that stat's history, joins Lawrence Taylor as the only 3-time Defensive Players of the Year. He has a chance to elevate into LT stratum. 22. Indianapolis Colts, Peyton Manning. When limiting the discussion to Manning's Colts days, the all-time great lands in a debate against Johnny Unitas. Both were 5-time first-team All-Pros. Both advanced their positional capabilities like no one else in their respective eras. But Manning earned 5 of his 7 All-Pro top spots in Indianapolis and competed against far more passers to do so than Unitas. The Colts survived Unitas' decline and late career absences. The modern Colts fell off a cliff in Manning's 2011 injury season. The record 5-time MVP, 4 as a Colt, turned the team into a contender quickly and later recreated the act in Denver. 23. Jacksonville Jaguars, Tony Boselli. Because of unfortunate injury luck, Boselli only played 7 seasons with the Jaguars, and yet he was still the stout blindside protector for an expansion franchise that won 4 playoff games in its first 4 years. A 5-time Pro Bowler and 3-time first-team All-Pro, Boselli was every bit the prototypical left tackle. He shined brightly, even if for a short time. 24. Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. Is this too early? Not a chance. Mahomes has been so exceptional during his first half-decade in the NFL that he cemented himself as one of the greatest signal callers the sport's ever seen. The man is 28 and already owns 3 Super Bowl MVPs and 2 league MVPs. Never mind being the best player the Chiefs have ever had, because Mahomes is speeding down the track to be the GOAT. 25. Las Vegas Raiders, Jim Otto. The Raiders are one of the few NFL franchises that don't retire jersey numbers, but if they did, you can bet Jim Otto's number 00 might be the first to go up in the rafters. He's arguably the best center to ever play the position, and did so in a black and silver uniform for his entire Hall of Fame career. Otto spent 15 seasons with the Raiders, which was his entire NFL tenure, and never missed a single game in that span. Otto was part of the franchise's first league championship team in 1967 and was named a first-team All-Pro 10 times, which is a team record. 26. Los Angeles Chargers, Junior Seau. Despite only having won a single league title since being founded in 1960, the Chargers have had some all-time great players on its roster. Hall of Famers LaDainian Tomlinson, Kellen Winslow, and Dan Fouts come to mind, but defensive icon Junior Seau is the one who tops all former Bolts. He was a San Diego native before going on to spend his first 13 NFL seasons playing there when it was a home base for the Chargers. In that time, Seau was named to a franchise record 12 Pro Bowls and won the NFL's Walter Payton Man of the Year award. 27. Los Angeles Rams, Deacon Jones. A 14th round pick who attended 2 small colleges, Jones is one of the NFL's great success stories. Nearly 50 years before Von Miller started haunting right tackles, the Rams' left defensive end was punishing them at a historic rate. Coiner of the sack term and prodigious user of the since-banned head slap, Jones unofficially rampaged to 173.5 sacks. That would rank 3rd all-time. The Rams began their rise as Jones's run of 6 straight All-Pro first teams began in 1965. The NFL needs to make a better effort to chart pre-1982 sacks. Jones's work would be the top priority. 28. Minnesota Vikings, Alan Page. Alan Page, who would have maybe the most unlikely post-playing career of anyone in NFL history, is our pick for the best Viking ever. Before he spent more than 20 years as a justice on the Minnesota Supreme Court, Page was delivering painful punishments on the field as a defensive tackle. He spent more than 11 seasons with the Vikings, never missing a game and making 9 consecutive Pro Bowls. Page was part of the franchise's first NFL championship in 1969 and was named league MVP in 1971, making him the first non-offensive player to win the honor. 29. New York Jets, Larry Grantham. All due respect to Winston Hill, Don Maynard, and Curtis Martin, but if the modern Jets had an ounce of Larry Grantham's toughness, their fans would be much happier people. No player in franchise history has defined his own position as well as Grantham, who was picked as a first-team All-Pro at linebacker, a team record 5 times in the early 1960s. He spent all 13 of his professional seasons with the Jets and was part of the team's first, and so far, only Super Bowl victory. 30, Seattle Seahawks Steve Largent. Hall of Famer Walter Jones is in this conversation, and Russell Wilson may earn this distinction soon, but Largent retired with the NFL's key receiving records and was the face of the Seahawks for years. A 14-year Seahawk, Largent managed 100 touchdown catches on 13,019 yards, despite being a smaller wideout with average speed. The fourth-round pick was the engine for the Jim Zorn and Dave Krieg piloted offenses that thrived during an underrated period for this franchise. Seattle made the playoffs 4 times from 1983 to 1988. 31, Tennessee Titans Bruce Matthews. Titans offensive lineman Bruce Matthews is one of just 5 players to ever appear in 14 Pro Bowls, one of only 2 to make that many consecutively. He played all 19 seasons of his career with the Titans franchise, beginning in 1983 when the team was still the Houston Oilers. He missed just 8 games in that entire span, all of which came during one season. He easily holds the franchise record for first-team All-Pro honors with 7. 32, Washington Commanders Darrell Green. Contrary to popular belief, the Commanders once had a vibrant tradition of on-field brilliance, and Green was at the forefront. A 7-time Pro Bowler and 4-time first-team All-Pro, Green helmed one side of the Washington boundary for an astonishing 2 decades. His speed was legendary, running a 4.3 second 40-yard dash at the age of 50, roughly 8 years after he retired. Green's 54 interceptions are the most in franchise history, as are his 258 career starts.